we need to make sure that we give the tools and everything accessible to the next generation to be able to make things better. And on the flip side of that, I would say is that the one biggest and strongest passion point I have is about hiring neurodivergent individuals into the workplace. If you truly believe in something, then you've just got to keep going and fighting for what you truly stand for and believe in. And it's like anything is that clearly you need a support matrix and a network behind you and around you that can help facilitate that. Keep people that are good for you close by. What we've seen in the last 2 years is nothing in comparison to what we're probably going to see in the next 2. I would say the acceleration process is just going to go bonkers. I work in advertising, right? But I would like to think that people enjoy seeing ads, right? Everyone knows they've seen an ad and they remember it and go, I love that, or they chuckled out loud. The problem we have now is there's a lot of advertising that is just mundane and dull and not that entertaining.
Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of the Cowshed podcast. Our special guest today was Global Creative Strategy Director at Microsoft for over 10 years before moving on to BuzzFeed, where he was Director of Brand Strategy. He is an absolute master of marketing who has spent a lot of time in the technology world and is currently Chief Marketing Officer for a project that is trying to revolutionize the cloud computing space. We dive into all of this and much more in the following conversation. Hi David, how's it going?
All good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. So I kind of want to dig into your backstory a little bit because you were global creative strategist over at Microsoft, if I'm right, which is a pretty big role. And I'd love to hear a bit about how you got there and what your role was there.
Yeah, so I'm an ex-Microsoftie, right? Once you've been in those realms, invariably it flows through your bloodstream. It's very difficult to not stay mindful about everything that's going on in those realms. And I actually fell into that world more by accident. They found me back in 2005, which feels like a long time ago. And in the realms of the mid noughties, Web 2 was really only just being talked about now because everything's on the tip of Web 3. But of course, what was going on at Microsoft and how I sort of fell into that role was that they needed to tell stories better on behalf of brands across all of the platforms that they had. So we're talking, MSN Messenger in those days was still alive, right? And it was Xbox was becoming even more of a phenomenon.
Is that because they were viewed badly, kind of in the public eye?
No, not at all. I think they were phenomenal in the sense of the amount of technology that was being released, and the R&D teams behind the scenes at Microsoft were just it was magical to see, to have access to some of the things that were being created in those world. Now, I've worked in advertising and creativity and marketing for the last 25 years, and the premise really for me was how do we showcase and tell a story about how brands are better at communicating to both businesses and consumers? And so I was sort of the conduit, should we say, the person that could translate some of the incredible stuff that was coming out of those platforms that could be then communicated or used as a platform for brands to tell better stories. And interestingly, back in those days, in 2005, really, the words rich media or interactive content or branded content experiences didn't really exist. It was very much, standard media advertising. So it was sort of like a epiphany really for the industry and the advertising industry to get better at how they communicated, because no one really imagined that crappy banners and pop-ups was the right way to tell stories to people. Just madness, right? So and so I spent 10 years up until 2015 in an environment that just kept developing and harnessing new technology and releasing that to a swathe of consumers across the world. So it was fascinating experience and far too many stories to cover off in the short period of time that we've got here, but brilliant nonetheless.
Must have been really, really exciting. Were you kind of already curious or interested about the internet beforehand, or was it more they saw you had a lot of expertise in marketing, and they wanted to kind of bring you on?
Yeah. I mean, operational efficiency and understanding and telling stories, and I was very good at eloquently getting across to agencies and creative agencies and clients about what the capabilities were. So I was sort of the go between the techs, the developers, the R&D teams, and those people that had physical cash that wanted to use the Microsoft platforms. So it was
Mm,
just it was a natural element there. Uh, and of course, obviously, everyone was in this process of trying to understand exactly what the world of Web one, let's call it, was really, because you had publishers with new content, editorial content was becoming more important. Traditional publishers, the newspapers of this world and the online forums, those early ramifications of social media platforms, the Facebooks and the Twitter of this world they were slowly building up, and people were trying to make a sense of it because.
mm,
And even now, interesting enough, nothing really has changed. The premise really is where do we go as human beings to consume content, be it our mobile phones, our laptops, or iPads, whatever it may be, versus human interaction. And of course, we know what happened to human interaction a couple of years ago, which then accelerated the dynamic of environments like us having this video call today,
mm.
right? Which would have been in a studio with his cameras and spending that time meeting each other physically rather than in reality or virtual reality, should we call it.
Fascinating. And so then you went from there to BuzzFeed, am I right?
I did. Yeah, I
And
did.
so what that's a pretty big shift and change in terms of the types of businesses and what their purpose was. What was that like, and how did it kind of compare to life at Microsoft and what they were doing?
I mean, it's a different beast, and it moved very quickly. It was a publishing network. There was one important piece I think that I got out of that. I mean, a lot of the clients that I worked with at Microsoft sort of transcended across because they were as fascinated about listicles and grumpy cats just as much as I was, and dresses that look different to different viewpoints. And there was an element there where we were talking about brands should talk to people the way people talk to people. And
Mm,
so all of a sudden there was a new way to communicate. There was a new way to tell stories. There was a new way to entertain, and it was very much more, I don't know, jovial, less, much more entertaining in the way that it wanted to communicate with people. But equally,
less
is that they
formal.
were, yeah, less formal, but they were trying to create an environment that there was a different way to do that, and they created this form of the listicle. But in actual fact, whilst I was there, we were building out a European, the European arm of creating video content for customers. So all of a sudden, it was we don't just want to produce a 30-second or a 60-second TV slot. We would like to communicate to the millions of people that live on that platform
Mm,
that actually are engaging in consuming content in a very, very different way. So that's one element. The other element is that it was lovely to see. It was very an open forum in the sense the editorial teams. We had an investigative journalist team that were focusing on some of the big exposés that were going on in the day. I mean, I don't know if you remember the whole FIFA expose that happened in 2015, 2016 was a huge element of news. So there were traditional journalists coming from those UK publishers and New York-based publishers that were then conversing across because they had the autonomy to tell stories not based on political stances, but actually freedom, more of a freedom of
mm,
speech. So that was the bit that was the eye opener for me. But things move quickly in the realms of the internet and advertising and branded content. And I was there a year, and in that year, I consumed a hell of a lot of information about how publishers needed to, one, make money, and two, help brands tell their story better.
mm. Interesting. It's interesting what you say about all the kind of the journalists moving over as well, because I guess that's almost going even further now, where a lot of them will report. Kind of everyone's got their own newsletter or Substack, where they can, I guess, write with even more freedom, more directly to fans. And I mean, how do you see kind of more traditional publishers? Do you see them surviving, or is it a matter of they just need to adapt more?
I think adaptability is a good way to assume, but also is a little bit more of an understanding of the culture and the way that people consume content.
Mm,
Now, selling selling daily newspapers, as we well know, is, you saw this week, actually, I think it was City AM in the UK realised that not that many people are going into the city on a Friday anymore, so they've stopped publishing the newspaper and they've gone digital. So it's a
mm,
great example of, you're seeing this transcendency of how people consume it. Now, the, the difficult one is with any publisher, you've got advertising revenue that funds, obviously pays for all of these individuals that are producing the content, and of course you've got to have some sort of walled garden or gated city where there's a
mm,
subscription element where you're not consuming uh, getting spammed by a load of advertising, but also you've got an opportunity to read content with the freedom of having no ads. I've always said is that from a publishing perspective, if the ads are in the right environment and they're telling a story in a rather clever and compelling way, then I work in advertising, right? But I would like to think that people enjoy seeing ads, right? Everyone knows they've seen an ad and they remember it and go, "I love that," or they chuckled out loud.
mm,
The problem we have now is there's a lot of advertising that is just mundane and dull
mm,
and not that entertaining. Publishers have got to find the perfect harmony in the mix between subscription, uh, advertising revenue, and then output, quality of output. But also, they need new audiences, so they're having to diversify and work out who else is consuming that. You look at BBC Worldwide, right? They can run ad revenues with all the content excluding the UK, and that the revenue that they make from that is
mm.
a huge funding scenario for that business to produce more content for clients.
That's interesting. There's definitely a few ads where, I mean, even over Christmas, over the World Cup, when you're on ITV, like a lot of them, you're just like, oh, you can't be asked to watch. But there's a few where everyone's sitting around and you're all captivated, and it is genuinely almost an enjoyable experience. And it does bring you almost forget that it's trying to sell you something, and you are just kind of caught up in this little film.
Well, that leads to the interesting scenario that is on everyone's mind right now is this Chat GPT, where
Mm,
you've got this AI content creator that you can pretty much ask anything from, can I feed my cat, uh, or it
Write a
just goes
poem
mad.
in like
Right,
Valley's
exactly.
accent about
You know,
milkshakes or something.
write my CV for me, or here's the job description, and I've got 5 things. I mean, you saw what Ryan Reynolds did this week for Mint Mobile. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I
He just
didn't.
put he just put in a number of factors, like add in a swear word, talk about Mint Mobile still doing an offer after Christmas, and there was all these elements, and then it just pumped out this piece, and then he repeated the diatribe that it outputted, and realistically, people wouldn't necessarily know until he
Mm,
said, and uh, and yet that's fascinating. But of course, if you're a creative, or you're a copywriter, or you're a journalist, all of a sudden, there's this fear that we're being taken over by an AI content creator that is going to be able to pump everything out.
mm,
Personally, I would say we don't need to fear too much. I think it's brilliant that we've got access to all of this data now and it's at our fingertips, and we can jump in and ask all of these random questions. But I still feel and believe that human endeavor is the one that actually softens the blow of some of the content, because it's not talking in a way that humans talk. I
mm,
mean, in some cases it may be, depending on the style and personality, but there has to be an element of human engagement and interaction and management and facilitation and even moderation to ensure. So over the next 12 months, it will be fascinating to watch how this changes and moves.
mm. Yeah, I saw a guy kind of write a thread where he kind of just tested out how good it was at SEO, and he kind of put a bunch of things, made to write a bunch of blogs, and he was like, it's not amazing, but like it's better than an intern who's been studying this for a year at the company or something like that. And so, yeah, I wonder, do you think that, because I guess this is the start and it can probably get better and better, do you think it kind of more just filters out anyone who maybe is not as good or doesn't have as much of a talent for it, and there are less jobs? Or do you think it's, yeah, I mean, how do you see it kind of disrupting your job or the industry and kind of storytelling as well?
I think naturally, and it's interesting you talk about careers and roles, because some of the things that um, we haven't talked about, the passion point I've got around neurodivergent individuals working in business, not just in the UK but globally. But there is, I've had job titles that were never existed before. And
Mm,
so you look at roles that are being posted out there just because of the evolution of how businesses and growth works is that job titles are created that in 3 months there'll be job titles that we've never heard of that will pop
mm,
up. Head of metaverse last year was, one of the obvious one. There was the AI side of it. We're always going to have elements of research in AI, but metaverse and Web3 portal managers and Web3 dev guys and NFT artists and the list
mm,
goes on. All of a sudden, bringing the realms of blockchain and all of these exciting virtual experiences to the world means is that the next generation of individual may not be a copywriter. They may be end up realizing that they're better at being a developer
mm,
for for a particular partner.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of see you rode one big wave being the kind of the internet wave, and then the kind of the new type of content and storytelling wave. And so you've kind of now you've ended up, and your biggest role, I guess, is now in the kind of crypto blockchain world. How did that transition happen, and what was it that brought you in?
Well, network is the number one. Okay, the amount of people that you meet. So I would say is I'm very good at engaging and interacting with people. So if people are listening to this and they want to know how opportunities arise, well, the first thing I would say is that sometimes there's an element of fate and fortune, but also
Mm,
there's an element of opportunity. Right, you make your own opportunities. You've got to go and hunt and gather. You've got to go out there, and if you and you've also got to work out what you love. And sometimes it takes people years to really recognize what they're brilliant at, and stop focusing and worrying about the stuff that they're not really that good at, because we can't be
mm,
brilliant at everything. As much as I'd love to be brilliant at everything, there are lots of things that just get in the way of that, and life in general, and combining that with work experiences. But
out of curiosity, how long did it take you to kind of realizing that marketing and storytelling was the thing that you loved?
I think I just like the way that it brought joy to people. Okay, and also in this industry is you get to meet a lot of people, and then you get to a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, is I love talking, but I also
Mm,
love listening, and I love listening to new people that have got newfound stories, and in the realms of this, you meet a lot of people, and that's sometimes how you have a conversation. They recognize your passion points, you recognize theirs. You're at dinner, and all of a sudden they're conversing with someone that needs to meet someone, and so there's always these lovely little close degrees of connection where you're
mm,
bringing other people together to see an opportunity. And that's exactly what happened with me is that I'm on a path, see something, I'm meeting people, all of a sudden they're like, you need to talk to them because I think that what you've got, and they can see it in you, and they think, right, okay, you need to be encapsulated by this environment, bring that. But I would also say is don't be afraid of pure accident, because there are I got into the whole blockchain and crypto and Web3 space more by accident, by friends introducing me to businesses
mm,
that believed that they needed someone's opinion. And in the same realms as there is this massive you're seeing this migration effect of all of these people that are working in the internet or digital advertising or content, that are now recognizing that there is this new world that is becoming the blurring of lines, or they call it the phygital, which is the physical and digital coming together, and that there is there's a time and place where something's going to happen where you'll consume something in the digital or virtual world, or you'll be shopping in the metaverse, and the next thing you're out and you're going for a beer down the pub with your friends and just talking
mm,
about how insane it is. So yeah, there is sometimes you've got to go with the flow, but also as long as you stay in control, right, and you feel like you're on the right path, it's fun. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't necessarily fight it. Sometimes it just happens by pure chance. Is my best advice.
That's nice, thank you. And so I guess then coming back to Kudos, was that
Yeah.
something, did you have a friend there or did someone kind of put you guys in touch? And was there something in particular about Kudos that drew you in, or was there a reason why you wanted to work with them?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of, and the combination was that there is a sustainable element to the business. Now, for people listening, they don't. Kudos is there's a blockchain, right, and there's a cryptocurrency, but there's a carbon neutral, right, offsetting its carbon footprint. So there's some goodness that's coming out. There's ethical, sustainable, and it's doing the right thing. But also is that for me is if I can help educate the next generation and those and peers around me that there is a hell of a lot of goodness that's coming out of what blockchain technology is capable of doing. And I'll explain something in a scenario. And then what fascinated me is that there's a charity layer in here. So all of a sudden, there's a philanthropic. We can help people in all walks of life, and we can help them by utilizing a platform to do that. And the other part is the computing piece. So this is cloud computing. And right now is that the business proposition is bringing those two worlds together. So you can acquire cloud computing via a smart contract, which is technically using the blockchain, and you could use any form of currency, whether it be digital currency or government-backed currency, to acquire computing power. But this is the interesting thing. If in the world there's something around the lines of 50% of the current available computing power resources that are sitting idle. And for consumers, it's closer to 90%. That's 90% of our devices just sit there doing nothing. Yeah, they're still plugged in. There's still the carbon element of that. And really what's happened is what we've come to the concept of is saying is why don't we use what we've already got? So rather than screwing the environment up, building more bare metal servers that need generative electricity, is that we use everything we've got. People plug into it. So it's sort of like the Uber of cloud. Like anyone can get paid back for using their spare computing power, and it doesn't matter if you're in Nigeria or Kuala Lumpur or in sunny London. It doesn't matter, but you have the capability. So let's imagine a future where you plug your mobile phone's plugged in at night and it gets to capacity. It's in sleep mode and it's sat there for 8 hours whilst you're getting your lovely good night's sleep, and then it goes into verifying smart contract or transactions on the blockchain, or it uses its computational power without degrading it in any way. And then the next morning you wake up and the app says you've just made £4 from using your spare computing power. Now, if you take that into the realms of IoT devices and all of the devices that sit around us all the time, and it could be, I don't know, anything from your car or your solar panels, but there's this, recurrence of earning money based on something that you already own that you never knew about. And that for me is that, great, I get to see all of these incredible worlds being built out by these brands in building out metaverses and virtual stadiums, and and every industry is getting involved. Fashion, football, even finance. All of these experiences are becoming more and more apparent on a digital screen, just as we are on now. But the computing piece is the bit that excites me, because bring those two together sustainably, and then I feel like I'm doing something right for the environment whilst I'm in a working environment too.
Well, tell of an idea. I mean, you're kind of just putting assets which people already earn and allowing them to, or making them one liquid so that they can lend it out, earn an interest on it, instead of it just being part there. Instead of having your cash under your bed, you maybe lend it out to someone in interest, and I guess it's the same kind of idea. How close is Kudos to actually realizing this? Is this something that people can do already, or is it something that they're aiming to allow people to do down the road?
Yeah, I mean, the future scenario will be, so there's a relationship and partnership with Tingo in Nigeria, which effectively gives up to 20 million plus Nigerians with a handset to learn to earn, farm to earn, play to earn. And so all of a sudden you think of that from the scalability point of view is that those people using their mobile phones to pay for the contract or pay for their family's mobile phones. So there is that element, and it's coming and it's in development mode. But right now, you're right, is that the blockchain's live. People can apply for a grant via our foundation. If they've got an amazing idea, but they want to build it out and they need the support, they can go and build it on our Cosmos blockchain. But equally, is if any brand, Web 2 or Web 3 now, needs computational power, needs cloud, and doesn't want to use one of the big centralized partners like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they can come to an alternative, and it's there now. So you can go in, choose what you want, pay by the hour, plug it in, and you're away. So it's edge computing. It's like, so there's significant benefits from a latency point of view. So the computational mining capacity is nearer you. So all of a sudden, the more people we plug in, the bigger the network, the bigger the opportunity. So it's just like this lovely perpetual cycle.
You mentioned decentralization there, and I think one thing that a lot of projects are criticized for is being decentralized in name only, or there's the kind of the promise of future decentralization. So like, we're not decentralized now because we need to get startup capital, have a team, blah, 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 but one day we will be. Where does CUDOS sit with that, and where do you see it kind of going down the road?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because you've got corporate businesses that are exploring blockchain technology in a variety of different ways, and clearly, obviously, and they're also exploring how they build out experiences that live within the realms of Web3. That's the naming convention for the next iteration of what the internet is. So, if we've seen what we've seen in the last 2 years is nothing in comparison to what we're probably going to see in the next two. I would say the acceleration process is just going to go bonkers. It's going to go utterly bonkers. More brands, more businesses, more people, and so there's this mass influx of individuals that will become to experience that. But going back to your point around decentralization, now there's a lot of Web3, people building out these experiences that are still using centralized cloud partners. So they're not technically decentralized. Open source, access to all, anyone can get there. I think the biggest issue really is the transactional layer that happens behind it. Is how do currencies, beyond from bank to bank, but how do those currencies and the way that people transact in these environments become even more seamless? And what you don't want is 10 internets, or you want blockchains to talk to each other. That's why we chose Cosmos, because there's an interchain piece there where you could create it on one chain and it could live on Ethereum. You need interoperability, and you need open access to everyone, and you want scalability. And that is probably the biggest challenge that will happen in the next few years. Is that how do you ensure you choose the right platform, the right partners, and the right technology to enable everyone to be able to see and hear and interact with what you're creating.
Interesting. What's the do you know much about what the governance structure behind CUDOS is like, in terms of, I think one thing people find confusing is like, okay, maybe it's decentralized, whatever, but how are decisions made? How do upgrades happen? Do you know much about how that's happened over at CUDOS?
Well, I know enough to know that we've got some smart cookies behind the scenes that are working in both product development and all of our communities of developers that are supporting us, including the validators regarding blockchain, any transactions or anything, or any activity that happens on our chain. And I would say is that the beauty of that is community developers is that we created an environment called our rangers, and our rangers vary. They could be creative, they could be omni rangers, they could be developer rangers, but those rangers really are the lifeblood of what we've created. So for them is that it's like having a community of people giving us ideas about how we then harness and develop that to make it better. So if someone comes to us and says, we've seen this incredible proposition that we believe should live on this, how do we then create it? We're facilitating that and helping to tell the story. And it's the same with any chain, really, is that you're only as strong as your community, and you're only as strong as the ecosystem and the partners that live on that. And my role really is to, as it was at Microsoft, is to take all of that knowledge and understanding and translate that into explaining it to everyone and anyone. So even if you're a complete newbie to this realm and you want to know more, you should be able to understand in layman's terms exactly what it is, why it's doing it, and the difference it's going to make. And if you can do that, then I think that's how you build your fan base, right? You people crave information, they're excited about wanting to know more, and they get involved. So, and again, from a governor's point of view, as much as I don't want to get into the weeds on that, is in the same way that's facilitated by that support from all of the people that hold tokens through to those people that are building experiences on chain.
Crypto definitely has a bad connotation within the public. And even now, it almost feels like the narratives are getting split. Like I had a call the other day and someone was like, yeah, this looks interesting. Blockchain, but not crypto. And then you speak to some people like Bitcoin, but not crypto, or like crypto, but not Web3. Out of curiosity, how do you think the space or the narrative around the space needs to change? Like how do you see it kind of changing in a way that it becomes less of a bad stigma in people's eye? Because I've heard the counter view as well. It's that it doesn't need to. The innovation will happen and people will end up using it, so it doesn't matter at the
Yeah.
end of the day. But as you are a storyteller, how is it? Do you have a vision for that?
I tell you what, adoption will come with when it being naturally seamless in transition. And what I mean by that is that I buy a coffee and I'm using a neobank or a crypto-friendly banking application that is translating and converting my UK pound into whatever currency, Ethereum or Bitcoin or CUDOS, whatever it may be. But then I'm paying for that coffee. And so for me, I know that there's that natural transition. And I did it a while back, and I just said I just bought that coffee with cryptocurrency. And they said, we don't accept cryptocurrency. And I said, no, but you don't. I'm paying for it with cryptocurrency that's converting it to fiat cash, and then that goes into your account. So I'm still paying you for my coffee with cryptocurrency, not with fiat cash. And I could see them thinking, their brain was thinking, oh no, how does this work? Are we missing an opportunity here? Now, I would say is that how this would work is that the more seamless, the more connected those are, and then you realize, because in some cases, people just invest in the fluctuation of cryptocurrency is the bit that puts people off. Is because you could go and buy a cup of coffee, for £2, with one currency, and then tomorrow it's £1.80.
You're buying a lot less coffees today than you were 2 years ago.
Yeah, of course. And that's the whole Bitcoin story about how many pizzas and Bitcoin. I think, and that's where stable coins come in play. So the stability of currencies that are doing something beyond the fact that they are, pegged to a government. And you need that from a stability point of view. But there's a sandpit and everyone should be playing in it. And what we shouldn't be doing is hindering innovation. We should be harnessing it. And so now you're seeing not just the UK government, but governments around the world recognizing that they need to fast track understanding, education, the technology, and work out all the goodness for it. And what that leads to is if you start to show the stories about the things that it's done well, then all of a sudden that changes the mindset. Now, I would also say is that for every crypto business that didn't make it, there's probably 100 traditional standard businesses that don't make it. Now, but nobody hears about them. At the moment is if there was something, the old FTX fallout, and then it's and everyone's talking about don't touch this thing because it's only associated to that. But there are thousands of businesses out there that had no association to that exchange, and yet they're building and innovating and creating this environment with currency. And so again, open for all, access, understanding, knowledge, and ease, make it easy. And that's the biggest challenge right now is acquiring a wallet and going through KYC and AML elements to ensure that it's a legitimate business that's doing the right thing. And so the more that we do that, the better it becomes for everyone to understand it, including our grands and granddads.
What advice would you give to kind of, I guess, any project or business working in this space from a storytelling perspective? Like, is there something that you see that most people are doing wrong that would be that they should be doing another way?
It's a good question. I wouldn't say. I mean, doing stuff wrong is not a bad thing, by the way, because that's the only way that we learn.
Yeah,
It's the only way
true.
we get better.
Failures, yeah.
It's the only way we get stronger. Elon Musk, no doubt, had many failures before he got to the point of releasing, those products. And but what they don't do, I would say, is that there's an element of relentlessness here. So they just keep going. There's perseverance. If you truly believe in something, then you've just got to keep going and fighting for what you truly stand for and believe in. And it's like anything is that clearly you need a support matrix and a network behind you and around you that can help facilitate that. Keep people that are good for you close by. I'm not a fan of suffering fools gladly, and what I mean by that is that I want positive people that are focused on wanting the best from what I'm creating versus the same as anything else. Sorry to say.
That's all right.
It's the beauty of being at home, right? You get Amazon deliveries and God knows what else is going on. At least we can open the door and accept them in. So my point with there is that there is, the short answer is that don't be afraid of not getting it right first time. And, we're all navigating an interesting path. When we get to 90, let's hope we make it that far. And when we get to that point is that I think there's something came out yesterday about 90-year-olds asking 90-year-olds what they would have done differently. Looking back is a great way to look forward. I'm not, whatever happened in the past, you can't change. So focus on the good stuff, hone it, mold it, nurture it, take all the best bits out of it, and then move to the next thing that you're focused on.
It's a lovely bit of advice. I feel like it's very easy to get caught up with looking forwards and then trying to look even further forwards and even further forwards. And sometimes you just got to wait, stop, turn around, see the kind of patterns of history, and then go forwards from there. I know we're coming up to the time you got to go. So I just want to ask 2 quick questions. So the first would be, what are you most excited for when you look at the kind of space from a holistic point of view?
As in the Web3 space or just in general?
In general. But kind of, I guess more crypto Web3 kind of themed as well.
You know what? There's 2 things I would say. There's 2 slants, and there's one's a passion point of mine for a very specific reason. But one of them is that, I think it was Bill Gates once said, is the 2 languages, the fastest growing languages are Mandarin and code. And for me is as much as I embraced a little bit of code in the late 90s and early noughties, I knew it wasn't the world I was going to ever get. I wasn't going to bury myself in code. But there are so many incredible people. Now, if we can get the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds to recognize that coding and anything from developing experiences to applications that help us with human endeavor to health and biotech and medtech and fintech, we need to make sure that we give the tools and everything accessible to the next generation to be able to make things better. And on the flip side of that, I would say is that the one biggest and strongest passion point I have is about hiring neurodivergent individuals into the workplace. Now, my youngest son is autistic. He was diagnosed at 4. He was nonverbal till he was 7. And we had to try and find a world that he could fit into. So it was like shoehorn someone in that's brain thinks and acts differently to an environment that nobody really fully understands. Now, in the last few years, that has changed significantly. And the work that I'm supporting with a charity called Neurodiversity in Business is doing exactly that. It's getting UK businesses to recognize that only 1 in 5 of neurodivergent individuals in the UK have a job. And all of a sudden, there's this massive raft of hugely talented people that have been diagnosed with ADHD or autism or dyspraxia or dyslexia, and even adults that are being diagnosed now because they recognize something they just needed to get some answers, and now they're doing that. all of these individuals were once frowned upon for certain reasons, like they couldn't spell, or they were
Disruptive or something like that.
yeah, of course. And now you've got this raft of hugely, incredibly talented people that businesses now recognize they need to hire. Now, and you're even seeing businesses pop up, specific recruiters focusing on neurodivergent talent. And that for me is brilliant, because that means is that there's a future for my son. There's a future for my
It's
children.
life-changing.
Completely. And that is what, so for me, I continue to push that and continue to push those corporate businesses to recognize that the way that we hire people, and, again, is the interview process over the last few years. Interviews were in video. You could get a job in Australia if you lived in it, or you're comfortable working in a time zone, where you're a night owl and you're happy to do that. And that's the beauty of that's the one good thing that came out of a horrific pandemic, is that people recognize there are other ways to converse. But of course, the other thing is that those individuals that are, wired and thinking differently need to be harnessed and nurtured to the point where they can actually get job satisfaction by working for a company that's proud to have them.
And they can, you don't want the team of everyone kind of thinking the same. It seems that there's kind of a trend of, I was reading about like big investment firms, and they'd only typically hire if you go to, LSE or XYZ. And those are the only types of people they'd hire. And then they kind of realized, oh, wait, if we actually maybe hire someone who, studied history but wants to come into finance, or studied this, that actually benefits the business, because it brings in more ideas, different ways of thinking, and then new skills along with that. And I guess it's a kind of going even further than someone who's neurodivergent. They've got something different. They have a different way of thinking, which maybe stops them from being able to be as comfortable in regular society, but in fact can be just as useful, if not more, because they present something so new and so different.
Oh, completely. Who wants to work in a room full of lemmings? Only the strong survive. It's like, and it's not even strong, right? What you want is a room full of diverse, talented, very different individuals that can each, like a graphic equalizer, right? You dial up and you find the perfect, harmonious notes that deliver whatever it is, whether it's a project or an experience or a business or a story. But whatever it is that you utilize all of those individuals, and also you engage and interact with them in a way that they feel comfortable. And now we're talking about work environments, sound environments. You go to silent discos, right? Everyone's wearing you can party on your own with a load of people and feel as free as you need to be. And I think businesses are now fully understanding the complexity of how they need to shift and transcend into a different way of working, whether it be remote or in the office.
Final question. Is there one particular book or resource on storytelling and kind of marketing that kind of really stands out for you or has impacted you a lot that you would recommend to other people?
Do you know what? I've read so many, but the problem is that what I would say is I take nuggets out of all of them. I mean, I did the Strength Finders, quite a few years ago, and I recognised that, and this is what I talked about. The reason why is we need to find and harness what we're good at, not what we're crap at. And I did recognise, and Strength Finders is one good example of that. Is that it in a very short period of time you can work out, and realistically, once you read them, you sort of know they were you anyway. But it's like you needed a rubber stamp of approval for someone to say to you, is you're awesome at these things. If only our education system would focus in the same way and harness the strengths of the individuals based on what they love doing. It's like, how does anyone at the age of 5 know realistically what they're going to be doing when they're 18 or when they come out of university, whatever it may be? They just don't know. But I think if you can find, most of the best pieces of advice I've had of when I've spent it with my network in candid conversation, just literally, blowing the breeze, just going with the flow, talking about topics come up, and all of a sudden you'll have a conversation and they'll go, have you ever thought about this? And I've been fortunate to be surrounded by some wonderfully talented and very super bright individuals. But equally is that sometimes the best ideas and best advice don't come from the places where you'd imagine or expect them to come from. And sometimes it's not always in a book. It might be on a podcast.
Just keep your ears peeled.
Yeah, just hunt and gather, pick up the nuggets. And I would also say is that of all of those, whilst they are layering in your brain, it's not a bad thing to create some sort of diary about those pointers that help on your way. So if you're, if you're in a position where you're not necessarily feeling 100% confident, or you've got, anxiety complexes about not feeling that you're in the right place or you're doing the right thing, well, you need to knock those out of the park and just crack on, and make sure you surround yourself with those people that will keep you buoyant and keep you being the best you possibly can be. Doesn't answer your question, so I'm not going to get I'm not going to get too many votes.
It doesn't at the same time. I won't keep you for too much longer. If people want to follow you at all, or kind of read some of what you do, is there any way that where people can follow you?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff business related is obviously via LinkedIn, so you can come and find me. David Pugh-Jones, Pugh-Jones on LinkedIn and Twitter. I post a lot of stuff and ramble on about lots of stuff on Twitter. I'm at David PJ, so just at David PJ, and you can. And I most of the time, I've probably got more followers than I follow more people than I have followers, and the reason why is because I wish there was more time in the day to consume all of the content. It's impossible to consume all of it, but now is that I love the randomness of seeing stuff. So I don't feel like I'm getting the same content coming over and over again. It feels like it's coming and it's got one narrative and it's got one vibe and it's one directional. I would rather have loads of different things that keeps my brain whirring, thinking about other stuff. So, when you do follow people, don't follow the same type of people. Follow people that are doing wonderful things, from, research to recruiting, new talent, to building out lovely experiences. Go and pick and choose the things that you love, and find a few people that are a bit spiky that like to talk about it as well, or quite passionate at talking about it.
No, great idea. It's a kind of a similar advice to also following people you disagree with, or someone who you maybe really don't like, but just follow anyway, see what they're saying, try not to react. Kind of, you might pick up someone, you might even change your own view.
Yeah, I try to keep mine as positive as I possibly can. So invariably, if it's going to get me into some ranting mode because I don't agree with it,
yeah, true.
I might just steer clear for now.
Oh no! All right. Well, thank you for speaking to me, David. It's been great to meet you.
No worries at all. And hopefully, whoever gets to hear and watch this takes one nugget of insight, or something that gets them to think about doing something slightly different, and they take some value out of it. So if that's the case, then I'm happy. My work is done here.
A quick reminder that we are holding a blockchain retreat from the 11th to the 14th of May, where you will find fresh food, yoga, breathwork, sea swims, a sauna with a beautiful view of the sea, and of course talks, panels and workshops all about Bitcoin, crypto and blockchain. If you would like to be one of the 100 attendees there, please head over to our website at cowshed.org.uk, where you can register for interest so that you will be notified when tickets go live. That is all for this week. See you soon.